In the heart of Philadelphia stands a fortress of stone and steel, Eastern State Penitentiary. Once a revolutionary prison designed for solitary reflection, its walls now whisper tales of torment and despair. Opened in 1829, this penitentiary was the first of its kind, emphasizing isolation over punishment. But as decades passed, stories emerged of shadows flitting through corridors, disembodied voices echoing in empty cells, and unseen hands brushing against visitors. Today, Eastern State is not just a relic of penal history, it's a beacon for those seeking the paranormal. Welcome to a place where the past lingers, and the spirits never rest. Eastern State wasn't built to punish, it was built to reform through silence. Inmates were locked alone in stone cells with no contact, no voices, no visitors. Meals were passed through a small slot. Even guards wore padded shoes to preserve the silence. Over time, the isolation drove many prisoners to madness. Some reported hearing whispers that weren't there, scratching from inside the walls, and shadowy figures that watched them sleep. Whether it was the architecture or something far darker, the prison began to breed something unnatural, a presence that never left. By the mid-20th century, prison staff had begun to whisper about Cell Block 12, a place even the guards avoided after dark. Cell 12, in particular, had a reputation for strange sounds. Multiple guards reported hearing distant whispers and soft crying, though no inmates were housed there at the time. One night, a guard swore he saw a shadow glide along the corridor wall, flicker like smoke, and vanish into the sealed cell. He quit the next morning. The stories were always the same: something waited in Cell 12, and it didn't like to be watched. In 1911, an inmate named Joseph Taylor was brutally murdered in Cell Block 3. His killer, a fellow prisoner, used a metal rod to bludgeon him while he slept. There was no scream, no struggle, just the dull echo of metal against flesh. Since then, strange things have been reported in Taylor's cell. Guards hear pacing footsteps when the block is empty. Cold drafts pass through sealed halls. Visitors have even fainted inside the room. Some claim Taylor never left, and neither did the rage that ended his life. During a public tour in the early 2000s, a woman wandered briefly away from her group inside Cell Block 4. Surveillance footage later showed her turning sharply, as if someone whispered in her ear, though no one was near. She fled the cell, breathless, claiming a cold hand had grabbed her shoulder. After that day, she refused to speak about what happened, even to her family. But in every photo taken during her tour, a shadow figure appears over her left shoulder. The staff still won't explain it. Some say she never walked out of that place alone. Warden Herbert "Hard Time" Smith was infamous for his brutal policies and zero tolerance for weakness. After his death, the warden's office, once his throne of discipline, became a hotspot for unexplained activity. Paranormal teams report intense EMF spikes, sudden drops in temperature, and disembodied voices whispering, "Silence." Some have seen a stern, shadowy figure staring from the office window, a man in a 1930s prison uniform, arms crossed, unmoving. The Eastern State staff refused to stay in that room after dusk. They believe Warden Smith still enforces order from beyond the grave. In the 1940s, several prisoners awaiting execution in the death row wing reported hearing strange whispers at night. These weren't the sounds of fellow inmates, they were voices coming from inside the walls, whispering their names, recounting their sins, even predicting how they would die. One prisoner scratched, "They know," repeatedly into his cell wall before being found dead by suicide. Guards dismissed the claims until one of their own confessed hearing his name whispered in an empty corridor. That guard never returned to work. Cell 20 in Cell Block 4 has long been sealed off, not because of disrepair, but because of fear. Maintenance workers refused to enter after repeated reports of being pushed, scratched, and locked inside. Visitors claimed to feel an overwhelming presence, aggression, sorrow, despair, all wrapped into one heavy atmosphere. Security footage once caught the cell door slamming shut with no one nearby. Theories abound about a prisoner who died violently inside cell 20, his spirit now lashing out at anyone who dares disturb his restless silence. In the early 2010s, a visitor snapped a photo inside the main hallway of Eastern State Penitentiary. The photo was innocent enough, or so it seemed. When they reviewed the image later, they noticed something chilling, a transparent figure of a man standing in the shadows near the entrance, his eyes glowing faintly. No one had been in the hallway at the time. The visitor's camera malfunctioned afterward, and the image was the only evidence. Experts believe the figure is the spirit of a former prisoner who never left, forever haunting the prison that once held him. In 2018, a security guard monitoring the penitentiary's nighttime surveillance footage saw something that made him freeze in his tracks. A figure, tall and shrouded in a dark hooded cloak, appeared on camera standing motionless at the top of a stairwell in cell block 7. The guard immediately went to investigate, but when he arrived, no one was there. The eerie figure was visible only on the footage. Later, paranormal investigators reviewed the footage and claimed the figure matched descriptions of a long-deceased inmate who had once been part of the penitentiary's infamous death row, a figure who had never left, silently watching over the penitentiary from the shadows. Staff members at Eastern State Penitentiary have reported unsettling experiences while working late. One security guard claimed to have heard the sound of footsteps following him down the empty halls, only to turn and find the corridor completely deserted. Another guard swears that on multiple occasions, he has felt cold breath on the back of his neck, even when no one was around. The most chilling account comes from an office worker who saw an old, worn-out figure pacing near the back office door. The figure was dressed in a tattered prison uniform, looking lost and confused, as though still searching for his way out. The penitentiary's chapel is known for its eerie stillness, but during paranormal investigations in 2019, investigators reported a series of disturbing phenomena. As they set up their equipment, the temperature in the room dropped suddenly, and their EMF meter spiked, even though no electronic devices were nearby. The investigators began hearing faint whispers, growing louder as they approached the altar. One investigator described a sensation of being touched by invisible hands, feeling cold fingers brush his neck. The footage from that night showed strange orbs of light drifting across the chapel, vanishing into the walls, leaving behind an unsettling feeling of an ancient, restless spirit. A group of visitors to Eastern State Penitentiary in 2020 experienced something that still haunts them to this day. As they explored the hallway near death row, they heard what sounded like muffled cries echoing through the prison. At first, they assumed it was another group nearby, but when they approached the source, they found the hallway eerily silent. The cries continued, growing louder as if they were coming from the very walls themselves. The tour guide, who had worked at the penitentiary for years, confirmed that many others had reported hearing these cries, believed to be the tortured spirits of prisoners who died there in agony, their voices trapped within the prison's walls. In 2017, an experienced paranormal investigator made a chilling discovery while exploring cell block 12. After hours of searching, he noticed an odd shift in the air near one of the walls, as if something behind it was alive. Upon closer inspection, he found a hidden passageway, concealed behind layers of stone and brick. As he stepped inside, the temperature dropped dramatically. The walls of the passage were lined with old, dusty inmate names, some of which were scratched in desperation. The investigator's flashlight flickered, revealing an eerie figure at the end of the passage, an apparition of a former prisoner whose face contorted in silent agony, vanishing into the darkness before the investigator could react. The most infamous spirit at Eastern State Penitentiary is said to be that of mobster Al Capone. In 2021, a group of investigators ventured into his former cell, hoping to capture evidence of his restless spirit. As they set up their cameras and equipment, the temperature dropped drastically, and they began to hear faint whispers. Suddenly, the cell door slammed shut, trapping them inside. One investigator felt a cold hand grip his arm. As he turned, he saw a shadowy figure of a man, wearing a pinstripe suit, standing in the corner of the cell, staring at him with a menacing gaze. Before he could react, the figure vanished into thin air, leaving behind a lingering sense of dread. As we conclude our journey through the haunted halls of Eastern State Penitentiary, it's clear that the spirits of those who once walked these corridors still linger. From the anguished cries of lost souls to the chilling encounters with infamous figures like Al Capone, this prison holds more than just the echoes of its past, it holds the restless spirits of those who never found peace. As with every true story of the supernatural, the mystery remains. Are these the cries of souls still trapped by the walls of Eastern State, or is something darker lurking just beyond the reach of the living? The choice is yours to make. Thank you for joining us on this terrifying journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and check the description below for more details and sources about these chilling true events.